Hello everyone, today I want to review the new banner character Sangonomiya Kokomi. Before we begin, a little disclaimer: if you like this character for aesthetical reasons, the personality or whatever it might be, feel free to get her. This video will just be about her skill kit and whether I think she will be useful in combat. I just test run her because I currently don't plan to wish for her, not necessarily because I think she is terrible. She seems to be a decent Hydro support, but there are some that are just easier accessible, like Jingsho or Mona. To just use a metaphor, it feels like you went to Starbucks to get a coffee and you slam down a $100 bill on the counter and say, you can keep the change. You kind of get the same thing, but you scammed yourself on the price. So let's get started. Obviously, the test run isn't really the best testing environment because these builds usually lack a lot of stats. The character is only level 80, missing the last ascension. The same for the weapon, and the artifacts usually aren't exactly the best ones. And you obviously can't freely choose your teammates. I hope they give us at least a cry on the Pyro character to test Freeze and Vaporize, and they did. I don't exactly understand why Lisa. I would have loved to see an Anemo character for the Viridescent set, but this will work. First, I'm gonna go quickly over her skills. Obviously, the descriptions were public before she was released, so I'm gonna primarily look at the damage multipliers and the passive skills. This one is obviously the big one, 25% healing bonus, but 100% decreased critical hit rate. If you expect her to deal damage, you need to make up for this somehow. This one only decreases stamina consumption while swimming. This one gives her scaling 15% based on her healing bonus as normal and charged attack damage. Healing bonus isn't the most accessible stat. She has some built into her kit, so you might be able to hit like 100%, so you would get 15% normal and charged attack damage. It's actually decent, but obviously you need more to make up for the crit chance. Her normal attack, let's check the charge attack for this, 237%. That's actually pretty big. For example, Hu Tao has less at the same talent level, but 50 stamina cost is obviously a lot. And the scaling from her elemental burst skill, 10.8% max HP. Oh, I'm afraid that's probably not a lot. That's not enough to make up for the crit chance. On an endgame build, you probably will end up having like 30,000 HP on her, and that's like 3,000 damage. Yeah, I'm very skeptical if she can deal damage. And her E-skill, 12 seconds duration, 20 seconds cooldown, decent damage. If you pair it with this passive skill, she resets the duration when she enters her ultimate burst stance. So you probably can have 100% uptime on this, which makes her actually a decent Hydro support if the application rate is decent. So while we're at it, let's see what we're working with. No constellations, 4 set Heart of Depth. Obviously nice to see damage, and even to see if her healing is good enough on a damage set. Her own weapon, obviously level 80, isn't very nice, and she increases normal attack actually. She isn't incentivized to use charged attacks with this. That's interesting. She's missing the last ascension as well, and that's again not very nice. 30k HP, they gave her 105 elemental mastery, okay. They invested into crit rate and crit damage for whatever reason. That's obviously nonsense. 70% healing bonus, I think that converts to about 10% charged attack and normal attack damage. 135% energy, that's actually not a lot. How much was her elemental burst skill again? 70, that's a weird number, but I guess it could be fine on 135%. And Hydro damage bonus is quite high, 83%. Obviously, she is missing stats. She wasted stats into crit rate and crit damage, so it's not optimal, but you can probably just times 2 her damage and you will get an accurate value for a high-end Kokomi. Okay, let's just see how she does. First, her Hydro application rate. Can she vaporize every hit of Goba? She can. Okay, it's actually quite high. I'm surprised, to be honest. Next, I guess we just check her damage. Let's apply Pyro and just go into this. 18k charged attack. So I assume on a good build she can deal like 25 to 30k. That's decent, I would say. But it's not amazing. Because if you compare like reverse melt and vaporize comp, it deals like double of that. Obviously if she could crit, she could reach that level, but for some reason MiHoYo decided to not give her that ability. Next, let's just get Lisa a little low and see how much she can heal. Obviously we need to... First we need to get her elemental burst skill back, I just realized. Let's just get her to like 10,000 missing HP and let's see if she can heal it up on a damage set like the Heart of Depth. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, she still had some duration left, so I assume she will heal like 10,000 HP, which is decent. That's enough. That's about as much as Jean heals. Obviously, Jean's heal is instant, so it's obviously better, but you can work with that. Alright, time to get into the review. First, I was curious, how high is the Hydro application rate of her elemental skill? It's not as fast as Jingxiu, but I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised. It's pretty high. And on top of that, it actually covers a lot of ground. It has a big radius. It's not fast enough to enable Vaporize Klee or Yanfei, but probably good enough to enable Hu Tao and maybe Diluc. I'm not sure about Yoimiya, I'm not very experienced with this character. Definitely good enough for a freeze comp though. You can probably just play her as a Hydra support in a sense like you do with Fisher, for example. You just press her E-skill to summon her jellyfish, and when it's about to run out, you just switch back to her and press her elemental burst skill to refresh it and instantly switch off of her. You don't have to use her as a dedicated healer. You can just use her as a Hydra enabler. Next, let's talk about her as a healer. They gave her a more DPS heavy build in this test run, and she did just fine in my opinion. Which is great because her healing works in a sense that you have to pop your ultimate burst skill and you are stuck on this character attacking for 10 seconds. If you had to build a maiden set, for example, the damage loss by doing this would just be greater, and you might have a harder time to finish certain abyss stages in time, for example. So I think her best set is definitely the Heart of Depth to minimize the damage loss. And the last and probably most uncertain thing about her damage potential. On this build, very high HP, 100 elemental mastery, she did like 18k vaporized charged attacks. Unfortunately, I don't think that's good enough to make a good sub-DPS. I think this passive skill is decent. It gives her a little bit more normal and charged attack damage. Her damage multipliers are actually quite big. The problem is, her max HP scaling is complete trash, to be honest. And I'm actually quite curious if a Kokomi that focuses more on elemental mastery like 250 and has a lot of attack percentage, and some HP subs as well because she doesn't need crit chance or crit damage. I wouldn't be surprised if a build like this would actually deal way more damage. I can't test it because I don't have her, but I would be curious if some of you did it. Please let me know in the comments. So, to give you my final thoughts on this character, I think her gameplay is very comparable to Constellation 6 Noelle. You are kind of tanky and you need to pop your elemental burst skill to slowly heal up your team while dealing decent damage at best. You can use her as a Hydro application bot where you just use her for elemental skill, and when it's about to run out you switch back to her, use her elemental burst skill to refresh it and instantly switch off of her. I think there are better options that are more accessible, like Jingshou, even Mona, because you always have the chance to lose the 50-50 and get Mona. So, in my opinion, it's not worth using up your pity on the limited time banner to get this character. Alright, we made it to the end. Thank you very much for watching. I might make this into the series for characters I won't pull because I'm either not interested or, like in this case, I legitimately think the character isn't worth a single Primo gem. So stay tuned for this. Until then, have fun in Teyvat and bye bye.